Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, everybody. Let me introduce myself. My name is Laely Farokhah. I'm a lecturer in elementary school teacher education study program, Universitas Muhammadiyah Jakarta. Thank you for this chance. I'm glad to be one of the speakers in this international conference. Today, I would like to explain my research entitled The Improvement of Mathematical Communication Ability of Elementary School Students Through Project-Based Learning Using Mind Map Technique. Let's start from the background. Mathematics as a universal science is an important field of science that must be mastered by students. However, mathematics learning in schools in Indonesia has not reached the maximum results. These results are caused by a lack of student mathematical abilities. One of them is mathematical communication ability. The problem about mathematical communication ability based on the preliminary study conducted by researchers in one of elementary schools in Bandung, that the result showed that students have difficulty in communicating mathematical ideas, such as students cannot express ideas in writing, students generally are confused about describing the errors of the strategy, students are only able to make one sentence that describes the contents of the presented data in the mathematical problem. All of the problems also supported by the result of TIMSS in 2015, which found that Indonesian students had mastered routine, simple computational questions and measure knowledge of facts in a daily context. But Indonesian students need to strengthen their ability to integrate information, draw conclusions, and generalize their knowledge into others. Another problem comes to mathematics learning process in elementary schools. Mathematics learning in elementary schools still tends teacher-centered learning, so that students have less opportunity to explore mathematical communication ability. Some previous research showed that mathematics learning using project-based learning is better than using direct instruction to improve mathematical abilities. However, the implementation of project-based learning has not been maximized. Previous research showed that in doing projects, students need tools that can help them to organize the projects. Therefore, it needs a combination with other techniques or methods in implementing project-based learning. Mind map is one of the choices. Project-based learning is a model of learning that actively engages students through work and project as a student learning activity and task. The mind map is a technique to summarize the learning material and project the problems as in the form of maps or graphical techniques so that it is easier to understand. So, in this study, project-based learning using mind map technique is a learning model that presents projects as learning activities and uses mind map techniques as a technique to map project ideas and mathematical concepts used in completing a project. Based on that explanation, this research is to describe whether the improvement of mathematical communication ability of students who learn using project-based learning with mind map techniques is better than the ability of mathematical communication of students who learn using project-based learning without mind map technique. Next, about the methodology. This research used quantitative research using experiment method, and the design used quasi-experiment with non-equivalent group design. We can see from the pictures, there are two classes. For the first experimental class 1, that students learn using project-based learning using mind map technique. And the second one is experimental class 2, that students learn using project-based learning without mind map technique. So we can see the difference between the experimental class 1 and experimental class 2. Both of them get the pre-test and post-test in this study. The subjects were 63 students from one of the elementary schools in Bandung City. The instrument used mathematical communication ability test consisted 3 indicators. Next, for the data analysis, the data of mathematical communication ability based on pre-test and post-test results were analyzed using the normality test and man-Whitney test. The data of n-gain were analyzed by descriptive statistics, then they were analyzed using the normality test and man-Whitney test. And how about the result? We can see from the table of this result. In this study, the data of student mathematical communication ability were obtained based on scores of pre-test and post-test of mathematical communication ability tests. Pre-test for initial ability and the post-test from the final ability. The n-gain test was taken to describe the improvement in student mathematical communication ability. Table 1 is a descriptive statistical analysis of the improvement of student mathematical communication ability obtained based on the result of pre-test and post-test. So here the table 1, we can see the mean of experiment 1 and experiment 2. Both of them included into medium category. The n-gain data were analyzed using the normality test, and the results showed that both of the class, experiment 1 and experiment 2, were not normally distributed. So the next step is using man-Whitney test to analyze the n-gain data. Here the table 2, the result of man-Whitney test. The improvement of mathematical communication ability, we can see the man-Whitney test obtained that the significant total value is 0.023, which is divided into 2. So the significant result was 0.0115, which means under 0.05. So the results show that the improvement of mathematical communication of students who learn using project-based learning using mind map techniques is better than the ability of mathematical communication of students who learn using project-based learning without mind map techniques. So we can see that experimental class 1 is better than experimental class 2 in students' mathematical communication ability. And how about the discussion? We can see there are 4. For the first, the difference in the improvement of mathematical communication between experimental class 1 and experimental class 2 is certainly supported by the use of mind map techniques in the experimental class 1. There are differences between experimental class 1 and experimental class 2, especially in the stage of project implementation and testing the result of project. We can see that experimental class 1 using mind map and experimental class 2 without mind map. So the difference in implementation when student doing project and when student testing the result of the project, when the students communicate the projects in experimental class 1 using mind map, but in experimental class 2 without mind map. So we can see the difference. The use of mind map techniques helps students map every idea contained in data information. Through mind map techniques also help students communicate their ideas systematically and have links between the ideas expressed. And the last, this is in line with the results of the research. The previous research from Farokhah et al., which shows that the result that the ability mathematical communication who use learning applies the mind mapping learning is better than the conventional method. So from the result, we have some of findings and discussion, like the difference in implementation, the project-based learning between using mind map and without mind map. So in conclusion, the improvement of mathematical communication of students who learn using project-based learning using mind map technique is better than the ability of mathematical communication of students who learn using project-based learning without mind map. From this conclusion, the project-based learning model with mind map technique provides a positive contribution to improve the mathematical communication skills of elementary school students. The use of mind map techniques can optimize the implementation of project-based learning, even though the improvements obtained in this study are still included in medium category. So the researcher recommends that for the selection of projects to be completed by students in group must be appropriate and consider students' abilities and student time allocation. Besides, instructions for implementing project work must be presented clearly and thoroughly to facilitate students in carrying out the project. Last, we would like to express the appreciation to LPDP for financial support for all of the respondents, and we express